So this video is going to be about applying for university for nursing, and I'm going to try and give you the tips that I have gained from my experience. I must admit that when I was applying, I did have some friends to speak to and some teachers and links such as that, but when I think about it, I didn't really have that much information at my disposal. Also, I went to a school where not many people applied for nursing, and so I think definitely the careers advisor and also my UCAS, the teacher we had in charge of UCAS applications, didn't really know much about any assistance he could give me, but that was okay because, you know, I still have got the university place, and I just want to give you some of the information that I've had from my application process to make it easier for you. One of the first things I would say when applying to universities is really think about where you're applying. Now that sounds obvious, but there are going to be lots of factors when choosing a university. Many universities across the UK and across the world offer nursing courses, and I'm going to talk about the UK for the purpose of this video. There are courses in Scotland, Wales, Ireland and England, and they have intakes from all over the UK. So you're really spoilt for choice in terms of applying. So you really can be quite selective for what you want. Now remember that the main 4 branches of nursing are adult, child, mental health and learning disability. And some universities offer dual qualifications, but they're very popular courses and also only a limited number offer them. So it's really good to decide first of all which branch of nursing do you want to go into and why, and can you get relevant experience in that area. Now, what I would say first of all, experience is key, you know, to have an idea of a healthcare setting, to think, is this really the sort of thing I want to be doing? That's a very reasonable thing for university to ask. They also understand that especially at a younger age it's quite difficult to get experience because of health safety issues. In fact, a lot of places won't let anyone under 18 onto a ward. And so, many universities do understand that as long as you can make your experience relevant and show what you've learned as an outcome, that they can consider your application. For example, I haven't had any experience caring for very sick children. But what I have done is I went on an exchange in Germany and I worked in a German kindergarten for 10 days. And I could use this to talk about communication and listening skills, which is something they really focus on in nursing, is communication, which is obvious, especially with children, because children don't find it as easy to communicate what they're feeling verbally. So you have to look for non-verbal signs and be really attuned to how to interact with children. And I also talking about the language barrier meant that there was a special emphasis on this, and also dealing with children that weren't known to me. For example, many people talk about babysitting their own family members, but it's good to get experience of working with lots of children, lots of different settings. I think that's important. So using that experience, I managed to relate it to a nursing course, even though it wasn't necessarily clinical. So you get the idea that I'm trying to say for your experience. But nevertheless, do try and get to work in a hospital. I worked in a hospital, but because of my age, I couldn't do a lot of clinical experience. But what I did learn about the interprofessionalism of all the departments and how it's really important that communication within hospitals, and also just witnessing how it all works and also witnessing some patient care, I think helped my application, at least to the university I was successful in getting into. But of course every university is different, every year is different, especially considering how popular the courses are. This brings me to my second point about when you apply to universities, of things not to do. Something I did, I must confess, for the majority of my applications was just to go onto league tables and then do my research from there. Whilst it's a good idea to get an idea of how the course is accredited and how it's ranked and how it compares to other courses, that's completely reasonable and something I would advise you to do. League tables aren't the be-all and the end-all when it comes to applying for nursing, because either way you are trained and you have your degree and you can work as a nurse, and as long as the university can offer you a course that meets all the requirements and has the best, you know, teaching it can give you, don't rely on league tables, because you have to really know about the universities, and also, I would say as well, consider how far away from home you're going to be. If you're my sort of age, and this is the first time you've moved away from home, it's going to be an especially big step. Also, if you're a slightly more mature student applying for nursing, you may have your own family at this point and not want to have to vacate large distances. So really look into what universities you have near you, or at least that you find that you feel would not be too far for you. For example, I applied to Manchester University, and I went for my interview, and even though it seems obvious, I knew it was obvious, that the university was quite far away from where I lived. I think it was 4 hours in the car. By the time I journeyed there the night before my interview and arrived there, I realised really how far away I was from home and how I didn't know anything. And, you know, some people lack that sort of new experience of a place, but for me that's something that really hit home. Another really important thing to consider, I think, is the placement links. Normally on their websites, universities will have lists of hospitals or foundation trusts or other healthcare settings that they are partnered with, to get an idea for the sort of places you go for placements. One university I applied to told me at the open day that they could offer me a placement within a 60-mile radius of the university. Now that's a long way. I was told I could be on the Isle of Wight, I could be in New Forest, and I could even end up in Reading, considering how far I live from the university. So you have to think, can I be dealing with changing my accommodation to go to placement? Is that going to work for me? So really consider all these things when you apply initially to university. Now we're going to talk about academic requirements. Now there's quite a large range of requirements for nursing depending on the university, because obviously it's not a career that's all about the academics. On the degree course you do have to write a dissertation and you do have academic work, but it's also 50% practical. So they're not looking for the biggest brain boxes, not the people that aced it at school. As long as I think the really important thing is to have a passion and the drive and also compassion to become a nurse. You have to try and show the qualities, and because I think a lot of universities are seen, because of the economic situation currently faced by many countries, choosing degrees that will get you stable work. For example, we're training for a job for life in nursing. They want to find out who's truly passionate and who is just trying to find the easy way as such. I'm not saying nursing is easy, far from it, but many people may perceive it because of training for a job, that this can be such. So really try and emphasise those qualities, and in terms of grades, I think as long as you have A star to C, 5 GCSEs, you're fine, especially when you come to the English and the maths and the science. Science especially, one more thing about science. If you are about to take A-levels or doing BTECs, make sure when you're choosing that you have a scientific-based sort of option, because you will be doing anatomy and physiology on the course, and you will go into quite a lot of detail in that way. So especially biology, learning more about the anatomy of the body and how the body works will really help prepare you. I've been doing some reading already, and even though I obviously haven't learned half as much as I need to know for my course, having already had a scientific basis is helpful. I would also recommend health and social care as a subject. I didn't take it, but again that gives you a more of a clinical insight and also other sort of healthcare experience and knowledge, which is really helpful, I think. When it comes to writing your personal statement, get it checked and rechecked. I will admit that I don't think I checked my personal statement enough and made it perhaps the best thing it could be. I thought it was quite good, but as soon as I was getting the negative comments from universities that actually rejected me about it, I realised that there were things I could have done differently. For example, I tried to relate all my subjects that I'm doing in my IB course, which is 6, to the fact that I wanted to be a nurse, when not all of them are strictly relevant. So only focus on something relevant that you can get meaningful output from when you're reading the statement, and don't waste up your word space talking about things that aren't relevant. So really focus on relevance, keep it succinct, keep it free-flowing, and try and be really careful with spelling, punctuation, grammar. That sounds obvious, but it can really affect your application. and also how the universities will look at application if it's perhaps not so well written. So get people to check it. Hopefully you can try and contact someone in the nursing know and they can give it a check over, give you some tips and advice. And of course, if anyone wants me to read a personal statement, I can try and give you feedback on everything I've learned. I know that may not be so popular as I said, accepted onto one university course, but I'm very happy with the university I've chosen to go to. That also accepted me. And I was also told, especially for children's branch, it's competitive to get onto the course because there are smaller cohorts. So look when you're applying as well at the number of students that are taken on at the place and how many apply per place, and that will give you an idea of the competition you're facing at the university. I think that's all the advice I can give you for now, and I really wish you all the best with your university applications. And if you think maybe have any other questions, as I've said, do feel free to ask and I'll try my best to answer them. So hopefully see you soon for another video.